Okay, so good morning and a very warm welcome to all of you. So today we'll be discussing some of the other disasters. We have already discussed various facets related to earthquake, volcano and landslide. Uh, Today I have taken a specific document from National Institute of Disaster Management that comes under Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. This is freely available document and entire documentation for the process of this all of these disasters, plus what are the rehabilitation processes and what are the response processes followed by the NDMA and SDMA in India have been mentioned. So today, as you can see, I will be sharing this document in the Google Classroom. So geological disasters have been discussed in this specific document. This is a 52-page document, and as you can see, there are multiple graphical representations as well, which present the causes of earthquakes. Okay, and various causes of volcanoes, causes of landslide, and etc. Since we have covered the earthquake, the volcanoes, and landslides in detail in the previous videos, I will be directly moving towards the phenomena of tsunami. Okay, so tsunamis, as we all are very much aware by now, because of the recent incident that took place in the southern coast and Andaman Nicobar Islands. Although it has been more than a decade, but still it has been a major catastrophic event for our country, for that particular region. And rehabilitation and recovering, and especially giving the response to the people who were alive at that position at that moment, it was a very typical task, as we all are aware. So tsunamis and earthquakes, they happen after centuries of energy buildup within the earth, and this we have understood already by the news and various media, that tsunamis are basically caused due to earthquakes that happen in the seabeds. So tsunami, it is a Japanese word, since it occurs very frequently in the country of Japan. So su means harbor and nami means wave. Okay, so it is a series of water waves that caused by displacement of a large volume of body of water, usually an ocean. In the Tamil language, it is known as Azi Peralai. Okay, Azi Peralai. So whenever a question comes, give both the names Japanese tsunami and Tamil Azi Peralai. Okay, so seismicity generated tsunamis are the result of abrupt deformation of the sea floor, resulting vertical displacement of the overlying water. Earthquakes occurring beneath the sea level, the water above the reformed area is displaced from its equilibrium position. Further, this releases the energy that produces tsunami waves, which have small amplitude but a very long wavelength. And because of it, it covers a long distance. As we are aware that the tsunami that occurred, the actual place where the earthquake happened was near Indonesia and somewhere in the between Indonesia and Andamans. So even at such a far location, these waves, since being in a very long wavelength range, they were able to cover a long distance and struck the eastern southern coast of India, and the destruction was very heavy. Now it may be caused by non-seismic event also, such as a landslide or the impact of a meteor. Although this was not the case in our Indian scenario, but this might be the possibility of such occurrence. Okay. Now, what are some characteristics? So, characteristics include that tsunami in deep ocean may have very long wavelength of 100 of kilometers and travels around 800 kilometers per hour, but amplitude of only about 1 kilometer. So, it remains undetected by ships in the deep sea. If these wavelengths were or amplitude were a little less, our ships' sonar systems would have been able to identify the occurrence of tsunami waves. Okay. However, when it approaches the coast, its wavelength diminishes, but the amplitude grows enormously. I believe you can recall from the lectures of physics of first year and plus two, where wavelength, amplitude versus frequency and all these curves were taught. So amplitude is basically, if we talk about a sine curve, so amplitude varies from 0 -1 to +1, okay, and in positive modulus of sine it is 0 to +1, okay. So here what happens, since the wavelength, suppose this is the curve, your wavelength is reducing, so what will happen, this amplitude will increase enormously. So this is what it is written here. So for example, I am taking a paper here for demonstration. Suppose this is your wavelength of this curve. Right now the wavelength is very high. As it approaches the seashore, the wavelength reduces, and because of which the amplitude increases enormously. So it takes a very little time to reach its full height, and the computer model can provide the tsunami arrival usually within minutes of arrival time. And tsunamis have great potential for erosion, stripping of beaches, coastal vegetation, and dissipating its energy through destruction of all the coastal structures and houses. So, how do landslides, volcanic eruptions, and cosmic collisions generate tsunamis? What is the phenomena behind it? So, what is actually happening? A tsunami can be generated by any disturbance we have discussed. A large water mass from its equilibrium position. In this case, the earthquake generated tsunamis. This water column is disturbed by the uplift or the subsidence of sea floor. So again, I am taking an example from these sheets available to me. So suppose this is your two different tectonic plates, okay, or this might be a seabed. So there might be an abrupt displacement. For example, this might just submerge this particular purple colored land mass, or tectonic plate mass might directly submerge. So because of it, there is a sudden abruption in the stability of the seabed, and because of which these tsunamis may generate, and this upliftment of this water body might occur. The submarine landslides, and which often accompany large earthquakes. So with this we can read about it. Now about tsunami warning system. So state of art early warning system center has been established at the Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, that is INCOIS or INCOIS, with all necessary and computational and communication infrastructure that enables reception of real-time data from all the sensors, analysis of data, generation and dissemination of tsunami advisories. Okay. Now this efficiency of this end-to-end system was proved during this large undersea earthquake of 8.4 magnitude that occurred on September 12, 2007 in the Indian Ocean. So in the aftermath of 2004 tsunami, Indian Ocean tsunami, Pacific Tsunami Warning Center (PTWC) has taken an additional areas of responsibility, including the Indian Ocean, South China Sea, Caribbean Sea, Puerto Rico. This is a group of islands, and US Virgin Islands. That was until 2007. So, in order to know the occurrence of tsunami-genic earthquakes in the past 60 days in and around Indian Ocean Sea. Okay. So, this was about the early warning systems. Now, next, establishment of India Tsunami Early Warning System, that is ITEWS. So in December 2004, earthquake and subsequent tsunami exposed the vulnerability of Indian coastline to these oceanic hazards. So following the event, India started its own interim tsunami warning center in the first quarter of 2005 to issue the tsunami bulletins generated from seismic information. So with this state-of-the-art Indian tsunami early warning system was established. Now what are the components? So components include real-time network of seismic stations, bottom pressure recorders, that is BPR, tide gauges, 24/7 operational warning center, So standard operation procedures have been mentioned, and with this we can predict and forecast the occurrence of tsunami in a very less time. So currently, Warning Center disseminates tsunami bulletins to various stakeholders through multiple dissemination modes, latest by fax, phone, email, GTS, SMS, etc. So users can also register to the website. Next, about tsunami information. So as we have discussed that tsunamis are formed by a displacement of water, a landslide, volcanic eruption, or as in this case, slippage of boundary between two earth tectonic plates. So it might occur. So let us discuss about 2004. So in 2004, December 26, this mega tsunami was caused by slippage of about 600 miles of the boundary between India and Burma plates. So around 600 miles, that is this distance of 600 miles, this slippage was observed. Earlier I mentioned about submergence. This is slippage. So in this slippage case between India and Burma plates of the west coast and northern Sumatra, the convergence of other plates strains the area, and this epicenter was formed, and due to which uplift of water was observed and these waves were created. Now these tsunamis can travel up to 600 miles per hour, that is 965 kilometers per hour. That is a very high speed at the deepest point, but it becomes very slow near the shore, and it hits around 30 to 45 miles per hour. That is still a very high speed. So this energy of wave, it is transferred to a height and the shear force as it nears the shore. So this 7.3 magnitude aftershock might have been powerful enough to create further tsunamis, but did not. Further historical information have been mentioned that what different earthquakes have occurred in the nearby Indian coastal belt. So you can have a quick look out on this. So these are some of the previous incidences of the Indian coastline ranging from 1760 to 81, 1883, 1941 and 45. At various locations we have faced tsunamis earlier as well, but that were not of very high uh, devastative potential. But the tsunami that we received in the year 2004 December was a very highly devastating uh, tsunami. Okay. Now tsunami risk and vulnerability in India. So this was already exposed in this last tsunami attack. So absence of effective tsunami early warning system, that is TEWS, and the last mile connectivity to disseminate the alerts and early warning messages to the coastal communities, as well as the lack of public awareness and emergency response preparedness among the various stakeholder groups made the tsunami response more difficult and challenging. Okay. So there are some of the other challenges as well which you can include in your answers while writing for university exams. So take a look on this. I will upload it in the Google Classroom. Please have a look at the entire document. So next we have tsunami in the Indian subcontinent. So in the past already we have discussed a few devastating tsunamis have already occurred in the Indian Ocean as well as on the other side. So the most significant tsunami in the Indian Ocean was the one associated with the violent explosion of the volcanic island of Krakatoa in 1883, which reportedly triggered a 30-meter high tsunami, and around 36,500 people were killed in Java, Sumatra, that is in Indonesia. So it has been devastating for global aspects as well. So even though these tsunamis occur very rarely in the Indian Ocean region, in the last 300 years, this region has recorded 13 tsunamis, and 3 of them have occurred in the Andaman Nicobar region, for which details of location of epicenter, the damage, and the total tally of the damage and deaths are still not very known. Okay. So this is about Indian Ocean tsunami that occurred in December of 2004. So it is one of the most destructive tsunamis known to have hit India. So around 2,38,000 people were killed because of it. 51,500 people went missing, and more than 1.5 million people displaced in the 14 countries. This tsunami resulted in damage and destruction of property, assets, and infrastructure in the coastal areas. In India, 10,749 people lost their lives due to the tsunamis, and around 5,000 people were missing in the tsunami affected areas. So next important thing comes up is tsunami risk assessment and vulnerability analysis. So it is important to collect the historical tsunami data and run-ups for better future estimate. So this INCOIS that is based in Hyderabad has compiled databases of tsunami-genic earthquakes and carries out post-tsunami studies. It is important to collect historical tsunami data on run-ups for better future estimate. Next, prior to the tsunami of 2004, the most destructive Pacific-wide tsunami was on the coast of Chile, that is in South America. So all coastal towns between 36th and 44th latitude parallels were either destroyed or heavily damaged by the action of waves and this earthquake. Okay. So further other examples of Hawaii, Philippines and Japan are also given. So next important thing we have is tsunami hazard and its assessment. So tsunamis are generated by large and rapid displacement of water, mainly from sudden and large scale changes. So till Indian Ocean tsunami 2004, people were not aware about possible tsunami threat in India. Only a few tsunami events, that too in very past, have occurred in Indian Ocean, and some of them were highly destructive. So what are some of the things that it creates? It wipes out the fishery businesses. It disrupts the tourism, pollutes the drinking water, damage. It damages the vegetation and crops. It destroys the shelters, damages the coastal navigation system, making huge impact on the overall economy. It also caused widespread damages to the jetties, harbors, coastal structures. Okay. So tsunami velocity and all these tsunami hazards we have already now discussed. So as found applicable, this remote sensing and GIS of coastal areas may be used for further deterministic approach to identify the tsunami hazard areas. Okay. So for the terrestrial environment, these hazards may be presented by inundation levels. Okay. Now the zones have been classified as zone 1 to 4 with water depth for these okay. So for tsunami mitigation as well as development strategies in rural and urban areas. So this have been developed, and the coastal areas can be divided into 4 hazard zones: 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, and more than 9 meters of water depth based upon it. So next we have multi-hazard situation in coastal areas. So tsunami affected coast will have a small width of 500 meters to about 1.5 kilometers, forming part of this coastal management zone. The areas in most cases will be subjected to severe cyclonic wind and storm surges, which may even be higher than the tsunami run-up levels. Okay. So beside many of the coastal areas are in seismic zone 3, this fact will have important bearing while preparing the disaster management plans for the tsunami hazard zones on these coast. So NDM, that is the National Disaster Management Guidelines prepared by NDMA for management of cyclones, medical preparedness and mass casualty management, psycho health, social health, mental health services also provide inputs for the preparation of DM plans in the coastal areas which are prone to tsunamis. Okay. Next, further we have tsunami vulnerability assessment by Ministry of Earth Sciences. So potential damage from any tsunami prevails because of hydrological effects to structures by pressure and suction, scoring, liquefaction, cracking and slumping. So these results in structural damage to buildings, contents in the house as well as damage to infrastructure. So there is the potential for seiching in the shallow harbor areas where alternatively water is drained from the harbor and then flooded to greater depths than high tide levels. Okay, so these are some of the other problems and after effects of tsunamis. Now something about tsunami preparedness. So what are the components and instruments of these warning systems? So network of land-based seismic stations for earthquake detection and estimation of source parameter in the two known zones that would affect the Indian Ocean region. Next we have a detection of tsunami generation through a network of 10 to 12 bottom pressure recorders and measure a change in water level of 1 centimeter at water depths up to 6 kilometer of water. Next we have monitoring the progress of tsunami and storm gauges through a network of 50 real-time tide gauges. Tsunami modeling, generating of high resolution data based on bathymetry, coastal topography, coastal land use, coastal vulnerability, as well as historic data. Setting up of dedicated national early warning center. Then some about tsunami terminologies. So arrival time, that is time of arrival of first wave of tsunami at a particular location. Then we have coastal area. So area of land behind the sea coast up to the zero inundation line during the estimated future tsunamis and beyond the coast in the sea requiring tsunami management. The area on the landward side of the mean water line and the area up to 5 meter water depth on the seaward side of the mean water line. Then we have estimated time of arrival. Then we have far field tsunami, that is a tsunami that is capable of widespread destruction not only in the immediate region of its generation but across the entire ocean basin. Then we have Green's function, inundation distance, intensity, local tsunami or NF tsunami, that is near field tsunami. That is a tsunami from a nearby source, generally less than 200 kilometers or a short travel time of less than 30 minutes. Then we have regional tsunamis, tsunami as a whole. Then we have vulnerability line. So vulnerability line is a setback line to the demarcated on coastal stretches, taking into account the vulnerability of coast to natural and man-made hazards. So do's and don'ts before and during. So these are some of the preparedness measures. So find out whether your home is in danger zone. So for example, people living in Ajmer city, our home is not at all in the danger zone. We are much far away from the ocean and it is practically impossible as per historic data that any tsunami wave might hit the city of Ajmer. Then know the height of your street house above the sea level. Then people living along the coast should consider an earthquake. Try to climb a raised platform or climb the highest floor of any house on building which you might see. Further, that building should be strong enough. Uh, then make evacuation plans. Then never go down near the beach to watch the tsunami. Then it will be very catastrophic. Listen to the radio or television to get the latest information and be ready to evacuate if asked to do so. If you hear any official warning, evacuate at once. Then what are some afterwards measures after tsunami? So stay tuned to the battery operated radios for the latest emergency informations. Stay away from flooded and damaged areas until officials say it is safe to return. Enter your home with caution. Use flashlights. Check for food supplies and test the drinking water that is available. Okay. So these are further some more websites that you might find useful by the various governments and organizations which will be helpful in understanding even for the greater depth about the tsunamis and also about the landslides, earthquakes and volcanoes. So further we have about volcanoes. So this I have already discussed in the previous lectures. So I won't be going in much detail. So I will be ending today's lecture with the tsunami portion, and I hope you found it useful, and will be covering it for exam accordingly. What I will suggest that prepare short notes by yourself, and for all the disasters I have said there are four pillars of disaster management. So cover all the four pillars. If you are not able to cover all the four pillars, suppose you are covering 2 to 3 pillars only, then for that particular question you might not be getting the maximum marks that the examiner is giving you. So try to cover all the points rather than trying to covering a single major pole of this major pillar in a greater depth. That will be much more useful, and since a lot of data will be going through your mind, so try to write your answers in a very precise manner and to cut points in that fashion. Okay, so that's all for today's session. We'll be starting with a new topic in the next session, so see you in the next one. Thank you.